Hey everyone, welcome to the final project for our Sociology 223 course. This is a project in which I want all of you to pick a topic that you're really interested in because it's going to entail you doing some research into this global social problem, but also really looking at what are people doing to try to solve it, and how do you think it could be solved in a better way? Many of the global problems that we've been examining clearly do not yet have solutions, and so your ideas are completely welcome. We really want to look at what are current interventions or solutions that have been proposed and how could they be bettered. So let's take a look at some of the different steps. So you'll see that this is titled a Service Learning Research Project. And I will say it's kind of a modified version of service learning, especially given that we're doing so much virtually right now. But I do want us to quote unquote, get our hands into things in the sense that I do want us to reach out to actual organizations that exist in San Diego that are focused on the particular social problem that you're examining. So that's the service learning component, but it's not an ongoing service learning project in which every week you would be doing, hours of service. We don't have that as an element of this particular project. So let's take a look at some of the directions. So again, your very first step is going to be picking a specific research topic that you want to look at. So maybe you say, I'm really interested in the plight of refugees, and I want to look at how refugees are currently being treated around the world. Maybe you say, I'm really interested in that discussion about the Americanization of mental health. I definitely recommend being specific with your project. A lot of these global problems, they're hugely complex. They're really different in different areas of the world. People are impacted very differently by them. So being more specific, can be very, very helpful. But of course, we also do want to look at it from a global perspective. So we're not narrowing down to any specific region of the world, but we are trying to pick, specific global problems. Once you've identified your particular research interest, you're going to do some digging into what does this problem look like around the world? And so this brings up that discussion that we have gotten into a number of times around how are some areas of the world, and then potentially some people in different areas of the world, how are they differently impacted by this particular global issue? Who are the people who are really involved? Is someone benefiting from all of this? Once you've done some research into what the extent of the problem is, then I really want us to take a kind of action-oriented approach where we look at very particular solutions. So what are people doing so far? What efforts have people undertaken in different parts of the world to try to deal with this issue at either a local or a global level? And how successful have they been? Have we seen mitigation of this social problem? Do we only see it getting worse? Has it been dealt with in some areas of the world much better than others? Where do you think these solutions have gone wrong, right? Where do you think you could critique them? That's, the premise here is looking at what's been done and how effective has it been. Then comes the part where you are all going to find an organization, some kind of agency that works on tackling this problem here in San Diego, or at least somewhere in the surrounding region. And I want you to reach out to them. So this may be putting in a phone call with them, right? Looking at their website and sending them an email, but definitely direct communication can be very, very helpful for us. And potentially you could do an interview with them, or you could attend an event that they're running, look at resources that they provide, something so that you get a feel for what this agency does and how effective it has been in its efforts. I also really want you to take this kind of problem-solving orientation to all of this, where you look at what are the amazing things that this organization is doing, but also where could they be improved? And likely any agency could benefit from additional resources, right? From more time, more staffing, etc. So it's not to say that we are critiquing them, right? Just for the sake of critiquing them. We're really looking at how could we actually deal with this particular problem? What are these organizations doing that is absolutely amazing, but also where are they falling short and why might that be? So then, once you've gathered some information, right, on what this looks like in San Diego, you are going to compare this to another agency that works on this exact same problem, but in another area of the world. And this is totally up to you. If you find, an organization in Korea, fabulous. If you find an organization in Argentina, wonderful. If you find an organization in Mexico, fabulous. In Australia, you get the picture, right? Wherever it is that you find something interesting, you find an agency that you would like to explore further, anything that gives us a comparison point. How do people in another culture, in another country, how do they try to deal with this problem? And of course, the problem may look similar there, but it also may look different. So consider that when you're looking at what their particular interventions have been. Okay. Once you've gotten this larger, bird's eye perspective by comparing multiple different orgs in multiple different places, then you're going to look at what would your solution be? So maybe you pull elements of what people are already doing. Maybe you come up with something entirely new. Maybe you combine multiple efforts. Whatever it is, right? It should be something that's creative, that is your original thought process. Part of the process of all of this is that I want you all to support one another in this. So if we were in class, I would have us do a physical meeting where you're put into groups and we do what's called a hackathon. Now, a hackathon is often associated with technology and people coding and things like that, but it certainly does not have to be. And there's actually numerous examples of hackathons, some of which I have in our resources section below, which I'll show you in a second, that are simply about problem solving. That's ultimately what a hackathon is all about. It's people coming together, sharing their ideas, and building off of one another. And so we're going to do that in a discussion board. You'll be put into groups based around your topics, and you all will work together, give each other ideas. Often this sort of bouncing ideas off of one another, that kind of brainstorming can be incredibly helpful in coming up with creative suggestions. So that's the idea. So more on that to come, but that will be part of, what hopefully helps you in this entire process of trying to come up with your own solution. Okay, then I have a short section that goes over the particular requirements for this paper and somewhat for the presentation, but I will also have a separate assignment that will be a discussion board as well that will give you even more details about the presentation aspect. But for your sources, you should have a minimum of 10 total. 7 of them will be outside sources. So here we're looking at academic journal articles, books that are from, reputable publishers, government sources, newspapers, et cetera, et cetera. At least 2 of those 7 outside sources should be academic. So here you can use the library databases, EBSCOhost, and ProQuest. Just make sure, again, to check the boxes, both for peer-reviewed. That means that this has undergone a rigorous process in order to be accepted for publication in scholarly journals. And then you you also want to check the full text box because that means that we actually do have access to the full article. You also could use scholarly books if you prefer. So if you find something, that works really well for your research topic, fantastic. Anything that's a university press, is wonderful. If you don't recognize it, you can always look it up to see, what type of publisher it is. And of course, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, the next three sources should connect to any of our required readings. So this could be, the excerpts from our Eitzen and Baka-Zinn text. It could be a chapter from our Snyder or Moore textbook. Maybe it's one of the additional readings that I've provided on Canvas. Completely up to you. Any ways that you can connect to our course readings are fantastic. The finished product should be roughly 7 to 10 pages or so, and your presentation will, roughly follow that same kind of 1 minute per page idea, but please do not feel like you are reading off your paper. This is really all about sharing the awesome research that you've done, your amazing solution. I really want us to think of the presentation as sharing information with one another rather than you having to, repeat exactly what you wrote in your paper. That's not the purpose of the presentation. It's really about celebrating the work that you've done and, sharing the research and insight that you have about this particular topic. Okay, one last additional component of this project is that I want you all to do another kind of creative element, which is that you're going to create a one-panel comic, and I've got a number of examples just below in the resources section, that either points to what this global social problem is or presents some kind of solution or intervention to it. So this is where you get a chance to try to sum up some aspect of this problem or solution using some sort of visual element. Often comics are so powerful. So let me actually quickly show you some of the examples that we have. So here, right, we've got this very, very powerful statement about what ends up happening to people based on global food supply. And we've started looking at this topic where, on the one hand, it seems like we have so much hunger, but on the other hand, we have so much food waste. And so here we have this kind of manipulation of our food systems. Here we've got one about free trade in the environment. Notice all of the super insightful labels, right, that are part of this particular comic. Here again, we've got this paradox around, this kind of chronic hunger that we see, but also this obesity epidemic that we have in what's often termed the global north. We've got, quite a number of comics that are available out there about fast fashion and the significant impacts that this has, both for people who are garment workers and then also for consumers as well. Here's one about climate change. The list keeps going, right? There are tons of examples out there, but every single one of them has some kind of very, very powerful statement that comes with it. Okay, so that's the final element, of your project. We are using APA formatting, so if you need any resources, you can click on this link here. And if you're like, Dr. Pete, what is this hackathon thing you're talking about? Again, I will provide some more info as we get closer to that, but you can always check this out. This is a list of different hackathon events that are all about problem solving of different kinds, some that are specifically around global social problems. Okay, so then let me show you the very final component of the prompt, which is the due dates. So you'll have the research project itself due on one day, and then we'll have staggered due dates for the presentations themselves. And I do mention up here that we will have more info coming soon about the the presentations themselves. So you'll see that here you will be doing them. So you'll videotape them ahead of time, and then you'll be posting them in a discussion board where then you will have a chance to watch and then comment on your fellow classmates' presentations, and then leave some questions and responses as well. So I can't wait to hear what topics you all select. Please, of course, reach out with any questions at any point, and I will see you all